Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me once again. You are always most welcome. Well, today the time has come to talk about Tamiya. Now everybody keeps saying to me, when are you going to do Tamiya, when are you going to do Tamiya? Well, I think that we ought to really get down to it. So without further ado, why don't I'm going to have to reshoot this again, aren't I, and redo it, obviously. Hello, Mr. Tamiya. Oh, mushy. Sir, this is a great honour. I was just saying that I'm starting to shoot the Let's Talk About Tamiya video right now. What I was going... No. Don't worry, I'm not going to say anything bad, no. No. But, hang on a second, you want me... Just a second. He wants me to say something bad about the company, but why? Yes, I understand, sir, I understand. He's worried that I'll look like a complete fanboy if I don't make some criticisms that are fair. Oh, okay, I understand, sir, I understand. Yes, I'm sure I can think of something. Okay. No, it won't be like the demolition job I did on Revel. No, it wasn't. It was a perfectly fair review that I did on them anyway. It was never going to be like that. It wasn't in the script at all to be like this, but I understand your wishes. I respect them, sir, yes. And it's a very great honour for you to ring me this way. All the way from Shizuoka City. Oh, thank you, sir, thank you. Very good. Well, I'll get cracking anyway, and I'll get it underway. Yes, thank you again. Arigato. Thank you. Sayonara. Bye-bye. Well, there's a turn up for the books that I didn't expect. I'll just have to revamp my script a little bit and perhaps include a few other items and comments that weren't originally scheduled, if you know what I mean. So, tune in soon, folks. Cheers for now. No, you don't. Not today. I've unplugged it. We'll not be having any more unscheduled, unsolicited phone calls or interruptions, my friends. I will be removing this. It's just any of you that thought it wasn't a real telephone. I can assure you it was. Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me once again. You are always most welcome. Well, I'm going to start with a quote from William Shakespeare today. I am constant as the northern star. Julius Caesar, Act 3, Scene 1. And what could be more appropriate for today's subject? Constant as the northern star is Tamiya, okay? Let's talk about Tamiya. So, we've talked about very much most of the other manufacturers, and I will very briefly mention that Tamiya have a bit of an agreement, small agreement sometimes on certain products, with Italeri, and the less said about that the better, so I'm going to get that right out of the way at the beginning. I actually got their 148 scale Battle of Britain Mark 1 Hurricane, which I thought was a Tamiya kit, and of course it was the Italeri one. And I am not a fan of Italeri. I won't be doing a separate show about them. Yeah, one of the European manufacturers that frankly always disappoints me. So we're not going to dwell on that. I'm just going to let you know that you won't be seeing a show on that. Today then, Tamiya. This was going to be scripted, as you probably know from my previous trailer, scripted as a general love-in with Tamiya, but that's not the way it's going to be. you have come to expect far more of me than that, of course. So, where to begin then? I have to say to you, first of all, that I was really struggling to decide what to put out, because I've got Airfix and Tamiya are my two biggest, numerically the biggest number of kits I've got built models in my collection, and it's quite a tricky thing to choose between them, because there are so many. I don't know where to start really. I could have had another, just as many again, more even, but I thought I would choose like the good, the bad and the ugly. Well, the good, the perfect and the not so perfect. Not so perfect. Am I talking about Tamiya? Yes, we'll get into that in a minute. Well, I got that phone call and he said, don't make it look, it's got to be convincing. So you've got to say something bad about the company. Well, not bad about the company, but I've got to find some fault somewhere. So why don't we start with that and get the elephant in the room right out of the way at the very beginning. Now, of course, Tamiya have been going since the late 40s, early 50s, in fact, in different iterations. And they have been a very resilient and remarkable company. Now, a bit like Airfix, that's sort of been going over a very long period as well. And the two are not really in direct competition with each other. Of course they're not, because they're at different price points, really. And you get what you pay for, and not everybody can afford 100. I don't know what's this now, over £100 for that kit. The Tamiya Tomcat with the launch set. I've got this big Mosquito. They're now retailing around £180. I think it's a ton of money. You've got £90 to £100 for one of these, and so on. So they're not cheap. But everything has a value, and if you pay a lot of money but you get a lot of value, then it's good value. Just like, you buy an Airfix and it's only £20-25 and you get reasonable value for your money. It's all relative. It just comes down to what you want to pay and what you actually want from your models, of course. So Tamiya are not often the beginners kits, not because they're not buildable by beginners, but just because of the pricing, really, I think. However, they have got a remarkable back catalogue. Their physical catalogue is worth a couple of programs in itself, really, but I have briefly talked about that in the past. It's worth, though, when I had the phone call the phone call about don't make us sound completely perfect because nobody will take you seriously, and there's a reason for that, because they haven't been perfect. There are one or two minor issues that are ongoing. And we're going to start with just a remarkable product in a bad way. A product that nobody can understand even to this day. It's not new, thank goodness. It's an older product from the 90s. And I'm going to show you a photograph of it. So I'm going to kick off with that, because we need to get this one out of the way right at the start. So anybody who loves Tamiya, and I've got to be honest, that includes me, always keep in mind that there is no such thing as utter perfection. There's no such thing as perfect companies. Everybody makes mistakes, every company makes mistakes, and every so often, even the greatest companies can really foul things up. And of course, I'm just going to move that very carefully over here. I'm going to zoom you in on this one. I wonder if you can guess what's coming. I know a lot of you probably can. It's our old friend, the Sea Harrier, not kinetic this time. Oh no. The 48 scale offering that Tamiya gave us was frankly as bad, if not worse. Got real bad reflection there, haven't we? Frankly, it was as bad, if not worse. Let me move it forward a bit. There we go. How's that? Hang on a sec. There we are. Not doing too well, are we, actually? Struggling a bit. There you go. That'll have to do, I think. So there we have it. They produced this in the 90s. I myself bought this when I moved into my current house. I think I bought it about a week or two, maybe a month afterwards. And then I looked at it and got it out and looked at the sprues, and I didn't actually start building it, but I just got this bad vibe, and I started looking up on the internet, and this is about, 15 years ago now. So Scalemates wasn't so advanced, and I think I found some comment on Brit Modeler, and the comments were not very positive. And I could have attempted it, but I just got this very strong bad vibe. There are some issues with the shaping of it. The artwork, again, it's a bit like the Kinetic. The artwork is great. It looks great on the box. And many people have bought this looking at that artwork and thinking that looks brilliant. They've not quite got the cockpit right. There's a few issues. I'm not entirely sure they've got the intakes right. And I say, I'm not talking about the photo, the artwork, I'm talking about the actual kit. And I sold mine on without actually, you know, I'm not even sure if I opened the bags in the end. I think I just looked through the bags and thought, I read a lot of stuff, I heard a lot of stuff, and I thought, I think I'm just going to dodge a bullet here and sell it on. So I sold it on without any problem at all. But I'm very glad that I did. And that wasn't me being a genius, that was other people's advice, basically. This was an absolute donkey, and probably the worst kit. I mean, Tamiya have done some, you know, they've done some fairly average figures. I don't mean recently, I'm talking back in the 70s, 60s, 70s. There were some of the figures weren't that brilliant, although some others were really excellent. One or two of the figures weren't that great back then. And then they really got into their stride about mid-70s, really. And to prove that point, I'll show you in a second, we've got the Tiger tank, which I think is from 73, 74. And that is, you know, fairly ancient, and I built that only 5-6 years ago, and it's a fantastic kit. So how they produce such a donkey in this Sea Harrier? The fit was bad, yeah, the shape of the missiles and things was wrong, they got lots of shape issues, lots of fit issues. And I think I was listening to somebody else, I don't know if it was on Phil Flores forum or some other forum I was watching, live forum a few weeks ago, and somebody said, I just don't believe that was actually done by Tamiya. I don't think they designed it. I think it might have been one of these cases, a bit like the Meng Fokker triplane, where Wingnut Wings designed something brilliant, somebody else implemented it badly. It could be like that, or vice versa, where somebody designed it badly. Not sure, but that is the kit in the Tamiya range to avoid, frankly, at all costs. It is a horrible, horrible thing, hateful, nobody has a good word to say about it. Lots of filler required, lots of reworking required, just forget about it. It's an absolute horror. However, I myself, as one of counting myself amongst the biggest fans of the Tamiya company and their excellent products, I encountered one kit that I expected to be really fantastic. Now, I did a review on this, and it was their, well, first of all, I'll put this into a historical framework. In 2018, they've had a really good run. They started this sort of regeneration of making big technological strides forward in terms of the tooling. Started in 2009, and I think I did a video about this kit, the Mark 9 Spitfire 132 scale. An absolute peach. Brilliant in so many areas. It has these incredibly thinly moulded panels for the cowlings for the engine, for the Merlin engine. It's got an undercarriage you can retract or have out fixed, and then they're actually screwed in, and you can remove them, display it on a stand in flight, or have it just on its wheels. So that's really quite a breakthrough, and it's got a really strong undercarriage. It's absolutely brilliant. Great, fantastic detail throughout. And just a really beautiful, very scale-like, nicely formed, cleverly conceived, and it's sort of, you build it almost in a modular fashion. You build the engine as a separate module, and then you plug it in towards the end. And it's very, very well done, very well designed indeed, beautifully implemented, great moulding. The only thing I changed on mine was the cannons and the tyres and wheels, and I went with some resin wheels and tyres and some resin cannons. I don't remember, are they resin cannons? No, they're actually master model metal cannons, I should say, Hispano cannon. But apart from that, I left it standard, you know. And everybody, you know, likes this kit when they see it sort of in the flesh. I don't know how it comes across on the camera, but it's pretty nice. I'm not here to brag about my kits and how I'm built. I'm just going to talk about the products, but you can see that this was great. Now, I referred to this. Oh, sorry, I've just remembered. I did do one more thing. That was the. I'm cheated on the Rolls-Royce nameplates that are on the Merlin engine there. You can just see them, can't you? Yeah, there you go. And I added a bit of the pipe work as well. It's a little bit lacking in pipes and wires. That's one thing it didn't quite go. Don't forget, it's 2009, so we are talking, what's that, 14 years ago. It didn't quite go as far as they do today in terms of that little bit of ancillary pipe work. But it was a beautiful, beautiful thing as a kit, and yeah, just fantastic. And had several versions within it as well. So you could have the desert version, and so on. Now, that I refer to that kit as the game changer. I think it's when Tamiya went into this ultimate top gear that they've kind of been in ever since, with an odd hiccup. With one hiccup I can think of in particular. And then they went into the Corsair, which is just over my shoulder here, just move out of the way. I think you can just about catch the Corsair there. Another one of their 32nd scale kits. They did the Mustang, and then of course they brought out in 2014-15, late 2014, I think they brought the Mosquito out, and the Tomcat came out, I think that was in 16, and then they brought out this later version in 19 or 20, I can't remember, 19 I think, because people complained about the one thing they didn't do with the Tomcat, they didn't offer it with the slats down, where it was in the launch position, which a lot of people felt was not as good an offering as some of the competition, even though their ultimate engineering wasn't so good. We'll talk about engineering later. So they've been through this evolution of just slowly getting better and better. And the Mosquito had another jump in engineering quality, where another thing they introduced on that kit, which they hadn't done before, we hadn't really seen before, to get away from the seam problem on your tyres, on the undercarriage, they actually built up the treaded tyres, the big chunky treaded tyres that the Mosquito often has, in sections where you actually put them on and there isn't a seam, because they're separate sections that are pre-moulded, and then you stick them on, and it sounds ridiculous, to be quite honest, but when you see it, you see the parts and you see it done, and everyone that's actually put it together says it's a phenomenal, brilliant solution. Somebody said to me, oh yeah, but I'd still use resin. Well, no, I wouldn't use resin. That's wasting something really brilliant, and I'm not resin's biggest fan anyway, if I'm quite honest, but if ever I saw something that did not need resin, you don't need to replace the tyres on that Mosquito unless you want to do a different type of tread, you know. But that was another quantum step forward. And then in 2018, late 17, early 18, they came out with this. And this is the Messerschmitt ME BF 109 G6. And this one, I'm hoping the background isn't too disturbing. And this one was very clever. It's got these open cowls, and everything that you see that's open is actually removable, and there are actually closed cowls and everything fits with magnets. And it's an absolutely brilliant concept. They were taking the concept of the Spitfire, the big one, a little bit further, and using this idea of these magnets again, and coming up with this really beautiful little model. And everything is just removable completely and replaceable with a closed up engine. You know, if you want to do it in flight, you can do, or whatever, basically. But it's the way they thought it through. It has these little gondola cannons as well, and everything, and the precision of it all was just quite breathtaking. And that was a kit that was about £36 when it came out. So again, it's like they'd scaled down the quality of their engineering down to 48 scale, straight from the 32nd. Now when that came out, I was blown away by this, and I thought, I know I'm going to build it, even though I didn't need another 109. But I built it, and I was not disappointed. One of the greatest kits of all time. Although Tamiya, you know, if I was to make a list of what I think, just my personal opinion, of the ones I've built, even just the ones I've built, it would definitely be in the top 5. I think it's that good, along with that Spitfire, I guess. Now, a year later, and this is where the story goes a bit odd, and they have one of these wobbles again, which is, you know, it doesn't happen very often. I'm glad to say. But a year later, they came out with the same scale, 48 scale, and they brought us a Battle of Britain Mark 1, a Spitfire. And here it is, the very kit, which again I built. So you can see I do actually build them. And here we've got, this one has not got any squadron markings on it. It's a long story, that I've already told it before, but I have an after-build review of this kit. Now this kit, I'm sorry to say, I felt very disappointed in. And there's a number of areas that are wrong on it. When I say wrong, I'm not talking about the rivet counting elements of this, but just went, Tamiya suddenly just seemed to go in the wrong direction, quite frankly. So for example, the cowl, they made the cowl, the top cowl for the engine, in 2 pieces for reasons not clear, and made it very difficult to get it perfect. So you end up with a gap, a step, which shouldn't be there, and even though there may be a fluctuation in the actual cal. It's not right. It's not right. There's no reason to have done it. So you end up with a load of work to do there. They've also gone and recessed in like a dovetail for the way that the canopy slides in. They've actually, for reasons that are not entirely clear to me, they obviously didn't feel that they could perhaps do the canopy as thin as they wanted to. So to have it in the slit, you've got two different top decks where the rear window is. One is if you want the canopy open, and one is if you want the canopy closed. Now, not sure why they couldn't just do it in a conventional way, but their idea was to make it look more thin. In this position, it's now in the fully open position. It actually has a step in. I don't know if I can actually show you this. If I can slide it on. No, I'm not going to break it. But if you watch my other video, which I'll put a link to, you can actually see I did actually demonstrate it more. This area has got it's got an indent, a cut-in, to make the sliding bubble canopy look more flush than it actually is. Which is a bit strange, because if you think about it, it means you have to have it then fully back or fully closed. You can't have it like sometimes in the Battle of Britain, they just open it a few inches to get some air in when they were waiting with their engines running. It was a hot summer. So that was a very strange thing they did. It's a bit of kidology. It's trying to create almost trying to fool the eye, but it creates quite a lot of work. Now, I can understand that I mean, the engineering of the parts, the way it went together was great, but they made some fundamental errors in the instructions. Really? Yes, really. And again, I do talk about this in great detail in the video. I'll put the link up to the after build Spitfire Mark 1 video. And an example in the instructions of errors was, very strangely, they have a hole drilled where one isn't necessary for all the versions, but they don't point it out to you. So if you end up and get to the end and you haven't actually filled in this hole and you've already started doing your paint jobs and things, thinking this part's going, and then you realise it's only applicable to one variant, wasn't made clear. And the second one is the opposite problem, where there's a hole for the little navigation light on the top, which you actually need to drill, and Tamiya forget to tell you about it. Now this is very unusual, and I had to go back and forth with the instructions trying to get my head around this, thinking that it must be me. Everybody says this, don't they, with Tamiya? If it doesn't go together properly, it's you, it's not them. On this occasion, it's them. And there's a few little glitches in the instructions. Another thing was that they put stencils. Some of the stencils were on the supplementary sheet with the decals and stencils shown, and then a few of them were shown actually in the instructions. So there's a complete disconnect between the two things, and that was very, very unusual indeed as well. So, I mean, I'm not going to go through every flaw that it had, but this had a number of flaws in it. I actually counted 10. And I got into a debate with somebody who'd also built it about 2 of them, but he didn't argue about the other 8. There was no argument. So be advised that, and the other thing that really made it stand out as being flawed, and I'm sounding like I'm being very negative. Trust me, there's plenty of positives coming for Tamiya, don't worry. I want to just get this elephant in the room out of the way, that they're not perfect, that nobody's perfect. Even the greatest, can make mistakes. But the other thing that they did, instead of having this 109, this Spitfire was, I think, £3 cheaper the kit retail, and yet it doesn't have an engine, and it doesn't have any cowls that you can open or have them removable like this one's got, with all the magnets and all this wonderful sort of multimedia sort of system that they created for it, which is so well done on the Messerschmitt. And on the Spitfire, they just went for a basic Spit really and didn't put an engine on it, and reminded me a little bit of the way Airfix sometimes do things, and think, oh, it's a Battle of Britain Spitfire, it'll just sell, we won't bother. Not like the way Tamiya normally operate, not like them at all. And it just left me a bit disappointed. It was, for something that was only £3 cheaper, it felt like it was about £12 or £15 cheaper, or should have been. It was a step back from what they'd had the year before. They went backwards, and very, very strange. Now, I was listening to Phil Flores' show, this is about a month ago I think now, I think when he had his festival, and somebody said, it may have been him, that said, and I kind of agreed with him, and he was being a bit critical of Tamiya, and I was like, at first I thought, what's he bashing Tamiya, what's this? But what he was saying was, and I can see his point, he said, they've sort of plateaued a bit. You know, we were having these big leaps forward, like we had the game changer Spitfire, then we had elements within that Mosquito that were a bit of a game changer as well. You know, we had the beautiful Mustang and the Corsair, and they've just stopped doing those now. We haven't had a 32nd scale kit from them now for 6 years, I think, 6-7 years. However, that said, we did have a new step change, which I don't think he really recognised. Maybe he does now. I'm not speaking for anybody else, obviously, but I think that we did have a step change in the engineering. Not quite the breakthroughs that we had before, but when they brought out the F-35 Lightning, that, in terms of the way it goes together, I mean, it's like Bandai stroke Lego, and I don't mean that in any negative connotation whatsoever. I mean, the engineering is so precise that I showed a video when I did the review of that. This was my kit of the year 2022, and it only came out at Christmas. I only got it on Christmas Day, and I was already planning to shoot the video 2 days after Christmas, and I had to basically completely replan my video of kits of the year. Not because I got it as a Christmas gift. I mean, it would probably still got in the top 5, top 6, but it went straight in at number 1 because the engineering in it is just on a different level. And there's a little video that Tamiya produced, which I included in my video, which I'm glad I didn't get any copyright issues on, because it was only in their interest anyway. It was a real promotion for them. And it's only a video lasted about a minute. And it just shows that it going together like an animation almost. It's actually filmed, it's not animated as such, but it's just a very tightly edited film of just putting it together without any glue, and it just goes straight together. And this is what people have been saying about the Tomcat. You don't need glue for 90% of the model, doesn't need any glue. You probably should glue it, yeah. But for those that go to shows and want to take tails off and wings out, you can unclip the wings, they just pop out, the tails will pop off. Nobody else does that, okay? So it's all the more surprising, I'll come back to that more in a minute, it's all the more surprising then that we had this rather strange, very disappointing and error-strewn, errors that I never imagined I'd ever see on a Tamiya kit in the modern era, and they were in that kit. And even the fit of the wings, the fit of the wings at the normal place that you have trouble, at the wing root, is really good, absolutely amazing. It clicks in. But I didn't get a beautiful, perfect click fit at the back, which everybody was saying that was the bit that was supposed to just click in, you know. I mean, I ended up with a beautiful model. I mean, I'm very, very pleased with this as well. I know it's another Spitfire, but this is a Mark 1 Battle of Britain Spitfire with the sky underside. But it's a very nice model, a very nice kit to buy. I do not want to put anybody off buying this kit, but I think I gave it like 9.5 out of 10. And I'm just trying to remember how I actually phrased it now when I did the actual after-build review. I think I gave it sort of 6.5, 7 out of 10, which is a big drop for a Tamiya, really. I've said this before when I do after-build reviews, there's always a drop, because you will encounter something in the build. In the big Spitfire, for example, I was a little bit critical of the way, I think it's fair, of the way that Tamiya went about the exhaust stubs. They went and had the sprue contact point right in the middle of the exhaust pipe, the weld point right in the middle. Now they're supposed to have these weld points, they have them on the real plane, it's a fishtail design, and they have a weld up the middle. And instead of putting them on the back and moulding it in reverse and having them at the rear, which wouldn't matter, they put them right in the centre. And I have to say, I'm afraid that Airfix made the same error. So you can see that the person that designed the Airfix kit has never built the Tamiya one. Had he done so, I'm not sure he builds any kits, but had he done so, he would have known that that was a mistake, and you don't want, it's a nightmare cleanup. I actually got resin ones, and they were even worse. Not because of the cleanup, they were perfectly formed, but they weren't good on the actual internal plugging in, the actual fixing of them. They were not good, and they were not going to be sustainable. And I won't name where I got them from. They were from the Czech Republic, I think, but I think they were a very credible company, but they paid good attention to what Tamiya didn't pay attention to, but they did the opposite problem. They didn't get the location right, and they were awful. And I spent an entire afternoon fighting with those exhausts. About 6 hours it was. So you see, you know, that was something that was an oversight on their part, and I say Airfix have repeated that same error. So sometimes this is what happens when you get designers who are working on CAD and are not necessarily modelers themselves. Maybe that's what happened, I don't know. But the point I'm making is the big Spitfire, I think I gave it 9.5 out of 10 when I reviewed it. When I came to build it, the only issue was that exhaust issue and just the lack of some of the wiring and piping I mentioned. So that ended up, I think I ended up giving it 8.5 out of 10 after the post-build review, you know. Which is a great score. To have built it and still say it's 8.5 out of 10. Not many kits are going to get more than that, really. 8.5 out of 10 on a very long build that's quite complicated. That's a great score. So you can see that the little Spitfire, they sort of went backwards a bit. It's a bit like Great Wall Hobby have done this year. They've gone back with their Tomcat, they've done the B. And they've gone the Maverick missiles underneath. Instead of forming them in the slide moulded single piece, which is what they've been doing so beautifully with their weapons on many of their kits, they've gone back to just a conventional 2 parts, like 2 halves, you know, 2 sides shells going together. All the fins have got to be stuck up. Well, why have they done that? They've gone back. I can only assume it's for cost reasons, but that is a step backwards and very off-putting. I mean, personally, I prefer the Tamiya Tomcat of all of them. Actually, I've seen them all now. They're all pretty good. They're all pretty good kits, but yeah, it depends what you want, I suppose. If you're perhaps I've just had so many bad builds, I just couldn't be bothered faffing around with all that and that silly framework. I'm going off the subject now. Great Wall Hobby have done this weird framework on the canopy. A bad choice. You can't beat the Tamiya quality. But with the Spitfire, it was almost like perhaps a younger team of designers were given that because it was only a small one. It was only a relatively low cost kit. It was almost like it was a junior team, new designers, and they hadn't perhaps been coached quite enough on some of the finer points. You know, there were certain areas they focused on which was very good, like the front of that, the way the wing butts up, that they got spot on. But one or two other things, they over-engineered it. I think this is probably the criticism that some people make. They sometimes over-engineer things a little bit. It's not their biggest fault compared to other manufacturers, I think, but on that kit they did. It all went a bit Edward and a bit over-engineered and over-parted, and it's like, well, why didn't you do it properly? Instead of messing about with this canopy system and having these 2 different scuttles, why didn't they just forget all that, stick with it as the previous normal way of doing it, and put more emphasis on providing a Merlin engine, you know? I mean, this is the thing that seems to reoccur with Spitfires, isn't it? We've had it with Qatari, with their 32nd Spitfire, which disappointed a lot of people, and is otherwise a beautiful model, yeah? Beautiful model, if you want a curbside Spitfire. But again, they did the same thing. They didn't put an engine in, and it's like, oh, they'll sell anyway, you know. But you know, the more intermediate advanced models want a bit more, especially when they're paying, what was it, £100 that the Qatari came out at. But anyway, I don't want to go off being talking about other manufacturers, but I'm not doing let's talk about Qatari because it's not fair on them. They're only just in their first year of trading, and maybe we'll do that in the future. But Tamiya basically presented something that was almost the same price as the previous year's kit and took a big step backwards. And I was quite shocked. Another thing about the moulding as well, where it's got the hatch for the radio and it's got the hinge, a little bit overdone, a little bit over-exaggerated, some of the details. I mean, it's a beautiful model. It's absolutely phenomenal in the cabinet. But for what it was and for the money, there was quite a lot of things I had to go back and correct, like not telling you to drill a hole when you clearly needed to do one. And you can tell it's an error because in the instructions it goes from one frame showing you putting the fuselage sides together, clearly no hole is visible, and then in the next frame a hole appears without any indication that you should have done anything. So that's clearly a mistake. So there's a little bit of QC slippage there, which is most unlike them. Anyway, I'm going to move on from the negatives. Well, there is one more elephant in the room. I'm going to have to, let's get that out of the way. I do like to get the negatives out of the way and then roll into some of the examples, really. Okay, so there is one final negative. So we've got a couple there. I mean, the Sea Harrier, I don't know what the explanation for that is. I can't even imagine really. Again, maybe some rogue designer worked for them, or they bought in third-party design, something like that. So they're the Sea Harrier and that Spit. The Sea Harrier I would avoid at all costs. I wouldn't say that about the Spitfire though. Just be wary. Go and watch my video. I'll put a link over here at the end. I'll definitely show you the link, the after build review, and you can have a really good watch of it. I show the instructions. I show you with you're left in no doubt what the issues are. So we'll leave it at that on that. The other elephant in the room with Tamiya really is the decals. The decals. Now, I feel that they've got a little bit better now. The problem is they're very thick. Historically they've been very, very thick. When I was doing the Spitfire here, I did have some issues. I used on the underside, I think I used the Tamiya decals, and sure enough, I had real problems getting them to conform. There's some uneven surfaces around the, I think it's around where the, is it the gun? Yeah, it's the gun ports around there. There's a bit of like a domed hump where the ammo loads in. There's a little bit of a bulge, and this is perfect example of where the Tamiya gives you issues. So I had real problems getting it to conform, and no matter what I tried, I was using I used Microset to fix them. I used Microsol. I even tried some Tamiya X20A, which is even more powerful to use on decals. And don't try this at home, folks. You can try it at home, but last resort. It wasn't having it. It's just started breaking up. Where there was this, it just couldn't. It's just too thick and not compliant enough over this surface. So in the end, I went and got decals from Tecmod and replaced them. But bear in mind, those are from 2009. They are, nearly 15 years old. And in fairness, I've used their decals on the Spitfire and the little Spitfire and on the little ME109, and I feel they've improved. I don't think they're as thick as they used to be. I'm convinced there's been some improvement, because I've not had the same levels of issue again. So I think that they know there's a problem. I think it would be nice if, I know a lot of us say this, don't we? I think it would be nice if they just went to Cartograph and bought their decals from Cartograph. But they're obviously not prepared to do that. But at least they are usable. In most, it's just the odd scenario where you have major conformability issues. It can cause problems because they are thicker. They're certainly thicker than the Cartograph ones. Thicker than the ones that Airfix use. I think they generally are Cartograph most of the time. And who else? Obviously ICM have got their own. They're fairly thin, but they're not the stickiest. So, you have some strengths and weaknesses as you look around the industry in terms of decals, to be fair. Tamiya's it's true they are thicker, but I don't, for those of you that haven't used them for a while, don't close your mind to them too much, because I think they're definitely improving. They're getting thinner, and at least you can get them, to go down, and you haven't got to peel off top films off them and all that stuff we have with Edward. So there we go. So yeah, there's been cases where I've had one or two problems with their decals, but generally speaking, they've been fine. Now I'm going to talk about just a few of my own experiences. Kits here that I haven't built yet. The big ones around the outside I haven't built, apart from this one, the motorbike, which we'll talk about in a second. That's kind of the end of the negatives, really. So there've been one or two bad kits. 2 in 35 years that I'm aware of. And then we've got some of their older stuff, and I've got 2 kits here that are from their older back catalogue. We have got the Thunderbolt. I'll zoom in a bit because I know you like to see things, not just hear me ramble on. Got the Thunderbolt, and we've got the Tiger 1. Now this Tiger 1 is probably I was going to say it's the oldest Tamiya. I just realised I've actually got that Porsche 928S, which is from 1980, and I built it in 82. And that's my oldest model of all of them, and it still looks quite good today. And I rattle canned it, Tamiya rattle can. So some of their back catalogue, Tamiya is the one manufacturer where you can say to people, especially if it's a newcomer, they say, "Oh, I've only got £20. What should I? Can you please recommend something that won't put me off the hobby?" And you say, you know. I mean, this Tiger, I picked that up for £15 in Hobbycraft, I think it was, and I've got the Panther as well, which is, I think that's 74. Okay, they've not got the highest detail and they haven't got the latest sort of moulding technology, but they go together perfectly. They don't give you problems, and then you have a really good basic blank canvas. I mean, if you look at this Tiger, don't think get the old zoom to work. If you look at the Tiger here, I'll pick it up in a second. The only thing I changed on this is the tracks. It's got the fuel tracks on it, which do make it horrendously heavy. It's almost like a real Tiger scaled down, because it feels like it's about 1 kilo here. It's quite heavy. So it's got the full metal tracks. So I didn't use the rubber bands, but apart from that, it's completely standard. And I did like a Normandy scheme on it, sort of a late war scheme. I'm very, very happy with it. I've got to be honest. I feel no need for another Tiger at this scale, really, even though there are some nice ones and some new ones coming out as well. It's a really, really nice model. So for £15, I don't think you're going to get any armour from anywhere better value. Likewise here, I think this costs £21, £22, and this is the wonderful, and this is probably the #1 recommendation for a beginner. This kit almost built itself. There's this old joke, isn't there? I think probably many of us are very familiar. I just got to say this, give a shout out to Andy at Andy's Hobby Headquarters in the USA in Phoenix, Arizona. He has this, his sort of, he has a logo and a sort of an intro, doesn't he, where it has like a cartoon Andy standing on top of a tank, a model tank, and then basically it shows a box, and in goes a craft knife, in goes some glue, and in goes some paint, and it shows it sort of rattles up, and then he emerges riding on this tank in cartoon form, completed. Now, people joke about Tamiya and say it's just shake and bake. You just chuck in your glue and your knife and some paint, give the box a damn good shake for 5-6 minutes, and then it's finished. Which is a ridiculous exaggeration. And there are those amongst you, some of you good friends and other modelers on YouTube that I get on very well with. And I know one or two of you, perhaps not as big a fan of Tamiya as I am, but it is a gross exaggeration. But what it does do, if something goes together as well as this did, this kit was absolutely amazing. I did not expect it to be a supremely straightforward build particularly, and I built this in late 2016, so that's a few years ago, isn't it? Now that's 7 years ago. But it just went together so well. Now here we've got quite complex decals which worked absolutely fine, to be honest. Plenty of microsol obviously, but it went down a treat, no problems at all. Some quite convoluted shapes there. We've got seat belts, decals, lots of things that sort of in theory on paper shouldn't really work so well. It's just a beautiful, beautiful model. And underneath, you've got all the details with your weapons, your bombs, and your rocket launchers. It's a bonny little model, to be honest. It's a bonny little model. But I didn't expect this to be anything special or anything memorable even. I thought it would just be, should be straightforward, because I've made things like the BF-109. And I think I built this not long after I built this Hawker Hurricane, the Battle of Britain Hurricane, which was actually the artillery kit with the Tamiya in a Tamiya box, that was disappointing. I don't like Tamiya really getting together with Italeri. I don't think that's a good partner for them at all, because all it does is misleads people and maybe puts them off the Tamiya brand, and I wouldn't want that. But this has got a great interior, it's flawless, and it went together like a dream. I mean, this was much easier than the Spitfire was to build, and this is from 1994. So when you think of it like that, some of their back catalogue, there's some absolutely cracking kits. Another one is the Messerschmitt 262, they did the DO335, the File, they're playing with an engine at the front and the rear, Mustang, and so on. Any of those are really good kits, and they're £20 or thereabouts, so you can't go wrong, you can't go wrong. At the other end of the spectrum, of course, and zoom you in for this one, other end of the spectrum we have got I'll just have to move this across for you. So there we go. A bit more. We've got this beautiful motorbike, and you can probably see I've got the box just over my shoulder actually. This is the one that many of you will recall have seen it before. I'll just give a demo. Some of you are watching this video will probably not have seen my other videos, perhaps. We do get a lot of newcomers sometimes come into these particular videos. So what we have here, Tamiya RC166. So this is the motorbike that won the Isle of Man TT race in senior race in 1966. And we have here something quite remarkable. We have working chain. We have working suspension. So I won't demonstrate because I don't want to put any weight on it. But you can clearly see we have a working chain with chain links. Now this was something quite exceptional. It comes with several upgrade kits, aftermarket, Tamiya's own. One is the clutch and the forks, which I say are working suspension. So I just don't want to demonstrate everything because I'm bound to break it. The other was the wheels, which are, you can probably see by the detail on them that they are very fine spokes, and you end up with these tiny little spokes, and the nipples that actually hold the spokes into the wheel rim, they are just so small. I mean, they're only 1 millimetre across. And there's a couple of great videos. One was me building it, montage, you know. And then you can see how tiny this stuff is, and then the chain is the ultimate thing. The chain is a real chain made entirely from photo etch, and you need to polish you have to cut it off in 2 places, every link, and then polish every link in these 2 places. And there's, I don't know, 70 links, I think 80 links. There's a lot of work, and it's just an eye destroyer. But as I've said to people before, it's really not like model making. That didn't feel like making a model. It was like I was building a watch, because these parts are so tiny, and the rivets, even all the little rivets that are on there, it was absolutely minute. And I've got pictures of it comes with a jig to assemble the chain, which was very cleverly designed, brilliantly conceived by Tamiya. One of their greatest kits, probably my best build, that is, in terms of quality. My own performance I'm talking about. It's flawless, basically. I didn't make any mistakes, which is rare. Rare. But I took my time, and it took, I don't know, 7 or 8 months, I think, in total. That was most of 2017 building that. I finished it, I think, just in the autumn. But it was quite remarkable when you see that, just how small these components really are, and trying to you're actually wheel lacing like a professional wheel builder, but in miniature. And I said to my wife, I said, a glass of wine? I'd say, no. You all know I like a glass of wine. No, thanks, Dad. No. Can I just have coffee or some tea? She was like, oh, what's wrong with you? I said, if I have a glass of wine, there's no way I'll be able to do this. There's just no way, because you needed to be on your A game. My eyes are out on stalks working on this. And they do this similar sets for some of the other motorbikes as well. It's not just this particular model. This is the RC166, which you can see here. I'll just move my lovely rising sun, just hoping it'll stay there. This is the model here, the RC166. So, a little bit for you. There you go. And absolutely, I can strongly recommend that. I give that 10 out of 10. After build, I'm talking. After build. So that's the highest rating of any kit I've ever built, basically. 10 out of 10 rating for an after build. Unbeatable, okay? Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. But you need to be on your A game. Yeah, you're going to need to be off the beer, on the coffee. Lots of good long nights of good quality sleep, because you are going to be staring at tiny things, and you're going to be doing that for hour upon hour upon hour, and you cannot have a hangover, you can't be tired, you can't be grumpy. You'll not succeed, and that's what you end up with. So I was very proud that I actually achieved that. On some of the others, I mean, we're moving on now into the realms. I've got so many other kits I could have just wheeled out, and there are too many to show. But I've got the Messerschmitt 262 mentioned, Mosquito, which I've shown, I'm talking the 48 scale one, so big. Some beautiful, beautiful kits. But the other thing that I think has really been a step forward for Tamiya in terms of quality, quite apart from this ultimate engineering. I mean, this is like an engineering experience. I felt like I've built a real motorbike. I mean, that even has the valves in the cylinder head are present. You can see the valves. It's absolutely incredible. But the other thing they do very well, of course, is also their figures. And I've got a couple of figures here, and there are some figures in the Sheridan tank, for example. I don't think these figures are actually Tamiya. I think there was a dragon, but I did a review on these a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago now. They do some absolutely fantastic figures. They're some of the best Tamiya now. Them and ICM are right at the top, I think. Dragons are good as well. Maybe not quite as good now. I think they might have been overtaken slightly. I mean, some of the quality of the moulding on these is outstanding. So if you want to get into figure painting, then that's the place to head. I can strongly recommend them to you. And then we need to talk about things like the F-35, the Tomcat, because it's hard to. I've not built either kit, so it's actually hard to put it into words because I've actually not had that build experience yet. But I do intend to build. I've got the other Tomcat, the non-launch position one. I'm going to build that, I think, in flight. And everybody has said, you know, you can see from the people that have built it what a pleasurable experience it was. It's not easy when you've got a complex large kit like that. But this is what I was saying about the people that say, oh, they're too easy, you know, they're too straightforward, there's no challenge. But it's not about that. The challenge is in how you finish it, how you paint it, how you weather it, and whether you put it in a diorama. What is great about Tamiya, and their greatest attribute, is that they don't expect you to do their job for them. They do their job beautifully, almost all the time. 99% of the time. And when you get the Tomcat, or this F-35 is the same. Not everybody's wild about the F-35 because a lot of people think it's a bit of a bland looking aircraft and it hasn't got a lot of character, which I can sympathise with that view as well. It's not my favourite plane either, but I was given that as a gift, and if it'd been anything other than Tamiya, I probably wouldn't be that excited about it. But I'd just seen that video I mentioned where it just all slots together, and it's absolute. The engineering is such perfection. They do it all without glue, and it just looks like a finished model almost at the end. You know, absolutely amazing. And things like the clear parts, the canopy, they offer a clear and a tinted version. No stone is left unturned on their part. They're basically saying, we'll do our job. We'll give you a blank canvas to build an excellent Tomcat or Spitfire, Mosquito or F-35 racing car, Sauber, or the Achilles tank destroyer, you know. But we'll do the difficult stuff in terms of getting it into a blank canvas, and then it's over to you. And the thing is, when you have, I mean, same with this one, I think I did quite a nice paint job on that Tiger, and it was because it wasn't a 4-month battle like the Kinetic Sea Harrier. You know, well, it was a year. That was my fault though, but it was a long battle trying to get that knocked into shape. You're not going to have that struggle. You're going to put it together and you can focus on the quality of your work and not be distracted and exhausted by the model. And I think this is why I like them. I don't mind doing hard work and putting my skill to the kits, you know, but I don't want to fight them because they can't be bothered to do the instructions properly, or they can't be bothered to mould it properly, or they don't QC it. Nobody, like in the case of some of the Edward kits, I'm afraid, the older ones, nobody seems to have tried to build them and then just put them into the market. And I heard that was actually true. Somebody that knows was telling me 1 or 2 of their kits were not tested much before they went out. You know, with Tamiya, I mean, I don't have a lot of insider knowledge about their company at all. But you sense that these are passionate model makers, the people who are responsible, the team that build things like that and like that. They know what they are doing. You know, they are young, enthusiastic, model mad engineers, basically, and it shows. You know, and when people who are not model makers design things, sometimes they are very, very good, but they don't have that final degree of perfection. They don't have that final icing on the cake, astonishing level of perfection in the way that things actually just slot together. There is a simple joy. It's like a Swiss watch, you know, Swiss watch. There's a simple joy in seeing something that has been passionately done by an enthusiast. And the only difference with these models really at Tamiya is that these enthusiasts are being paid as professionals to do it as well. But you can tell that they're not just going into work, you know, 9 to 5 and have no interest in modelling. You know that's not the case. Maybe that was the case with that Spitfire, that one-off. But with so many of their products, you get them and you think, well, no wonder it's £30 more than the competition, because it's £30 better. It's £30 better. So you end up with, you know, you can build them in record time. I built that Spitfire in 3 months. That was one of my, in relative terms, for something complicated and large, it kind of felt like one of my fastest builds in real terms. And I thought, how did I do that? I started it on the 25th of September, finished it on the 24th of December 2019. Just under, 3 months. And I'm very pleased with it. Did weathering, you know, did a special finish, I did a special markings. And it wasn't rushed. It wasn't rushed, but it didn't fight me. It didn't fight me. So yes, I did the weathering. Yes, I did the extras. I put the aftermarket on it. Yes, the seat belts. I did the cannons. I did the nameplates. I did all the cooling. None of this was on the kit. Obviously the cannons were, because they're the standard ones, but they were much nicer ones. But I put the extra effort in because I hadn't had to fight a war just to get the thing to look like a Spitfire. And I wanted to go the extra mile. It encouraged me to be the best. I thought, well, they've done such a great job of engineering this model. I've now got to do the best job I can do. Like with the motorbike. That was my... I'm confident in my mind, that's no doubt at all that is my greatest build. It may not be weathered in the way that some other models would be, but that's not the way it was presented at the start of the races. It would be wheeled out by Mr. Honda's company, you know, perfect like that. And that's another skill set in itself, having perfect high finishes. Some of you saw my, not a Tamiya kit, but the Fujimi Le Mans Porsche from Steve McQueen, number 20, Gulf Porsche. But you also will have seen on some of my videos, which I nearly brought out here, the John Player Special Lotus 79, which is this beautiful gloss black, using Tamiya paints as well, by the way, rattle can, and it gave a perfect finish, you know. Those are a slightly different skill set, but again, you've got to raise your game to make them really work. And you know, you can see with some of the things I've shown today and previously that you can do that. But my personal point of view is this: I don't want to fight a battle. I don't want to be challenged, and you know, it's not the Argonauts movie or Clash of the Titans where I've got to go through all these trials. I just want to get that built, and then I'm going to make it look special. I'm going to make it unique and add personalised weathering and my own sort of take of it, my own. It's like a painter, isn't it? They all start with a canvas, a blank canvas. That's the same at the beginning. It's what they put on that to make it look special and unique. And with the Tamiya, you know, what they include in that box is more than good enough to make a really excellent, you know, example of the model that you could have at Telford on display, no question whatsoever, really. And I think I sometimes get baffled by people that say Edouard are better than Tamiya or Airfix are better than Tamiya. Sorry, but these people are deluding themselves. The closest manufacturers to Tamiya these days are probably Zokimura, I think. Zokimura, they're still not quite there. They're still a bit fussy and a bit overcomplicated. But we'll talk about them in a separate video. But they are close, and they do, again, it's the Japanese, they do their research. There is a diffidence and a desire to get it right, and nobody exemplifies that better than Tamiya, I think. It's no surprise I've talked in the past about my admiration for Ron Dennis, the former head of the McLaren Formula 1 team, and it was no surprise to me back in the 80s when they got together. Once I started to read about Ron, because I didn't know much about him until about 86, and I started reading articles talking about his approach and interviews, and then about 5 or 6 months after I started reading this stuff and becoming quite interested in the way he went about things, a perfectionist that strives for the very best he can do. He's a bit OCD and and then 6 months later they announced that they were getting into bed with Honda, and excuse me, and they were going to have these Honda engines this snatched from under the noses of Williams, who already had them. And I was not at all surprised, because I could see that Ron Dennis's character was very like the Japanese, and that they would have quite a harmonious relationship compared to the one he would have with other people, and it was clearly destiny, that, and it's a bit like that with these guys, I feel. With Tamiya it's a bit like Honda, they are going to charge you what it requires for them to make a profit, which is fair enough. There's nothing wrong with making a profit. I don't think they overcharge you. I don't think they're overpriced. You do get a lot in the kits. The only things in the kits that they do put in that I'm not always that warm about, some of their I should have mentioned this earlier, some of their photo etch can be very thick and quite hard, a bit like the decals. They seem to have an affinity for things being very strong and quite thick, and their photo etch is noticeably thicker than most of the photo etch that you get aftermarket from people like Edouard. But other than that, they provide everything you need in that kit, and this is a very important point that I haven't yet got to, especially with both the armour and the aircraft, they provide you with figures. And the quality of these figures, I mentioned about the soldiers, the quality of these figures, it's not like we see from other people. I was a little bit surprised, if I'm honest. A few weeks ago we had the Airfix Gannet arrived, and it had pilot figures that were not good. Let's be honest, they're not good. They're old school, clearly upscaled from, 72nd scale, I think, and looked melted, and if you compare them to what's in these boxes, wow, it's like they were manufactured by a different species, really. These are crisp and sharp, and they've got brilliant detail. They look like the right pilot for the aircraft. In the case of the figures in the tank, they've got some astonishing details in there, when they've got sunglasses and wristwatches on their wrists. Really excellent, well observed and well sculpted figures. If you're going to do it properly, really. Don't want to go down the route talk about Airfix, Revell and the others, because we've done that already, but this is what distinguishes Tamiya. This is what differentiates them. This kit's got the shooter, the deck officer, who's releasing the plane, telling him when to go for the catapult, and that's another really nice figure that they've created. They're mouth-watering. You look at these figures and you think, well, they're so well moulded, you think, well, I'm going to have to really do a good job with these figures. I try and do a fairly decent job. I'm not the best figure painter when it comes to things like eyes, but I think I'm quite decent at it, I'm okay. But when you see them and they're so well manufactured, you think, well, I've got to make an effort here. I've got to put some energy and some focus into making them as good as I can. And that, for me, is what summarises Tamiya. There is such a pleasure in seeing something done so well that it raises me up. It's not, oh, well, they've done the job for me, I'll just do it, and it'll still look decent even if I don't give it 100%. I think a lot of us are like me. I think that you get a kit and you think, this has been brilliant, I'm going to make a bit more effort, a bit more weathering, a bit of a wash, I'm going to put a bit of detail in here, highlighting a bit more. Perhaps those figures could do with a little bit of another revisit. It elevates you, it motivates you, because you know that if you put the effort in and you can just throw a bit more skill, a little bit more effort at it, they will pop, you know, they will look better, they will really come alive. And it doesn't matter whether it's a motorbike or a tank or a plane or a racing car, whatever it is. I mean, I've got the racing car, I just mentioned this because this is another one that's quite interesting, because this is the Sauber Mercedes that won the Le Mans Sports Car Race in 1989 and won the championship actually, number 63. Now I built that, I was just talking briefly, I mentioned about the Le Mans sports car, the Gulf Porsche, number 20 Steve McQueen drove in the movie. I didn't have much fun building that for Fujimi kit. I built a couple of theirs now. And every time I build one of these, I've got the Toyota GT86 sports car, the model of the car I used to own. I used to actually drive the real thing. And when you look at their cars and motorbikes, they do it better than anybody. Really, they do. And I know that the only tricky part of that build for me is going to be getting the finish right on the silver, because I know that it's going to go together properly. I'm not going to be battling with warped clamshell bodywork that won't go together like on the Fujimi was. I had quite a lot of issues with that, it's got to be said. And this is the thing, you know, I know that if I raise my game, I mean, people looked at that Porsche, and a lot of you who watched the video, I did an after build video and I did a short montage, and people said, wow, you've really nailed this, it looks but it wasn't a satisfying build, and it's not 100% in my eyes, whereas something like this from Tamiya, it'll be knockout, you know, it's going to knock it out of the park. And I suppose to summarise, a good way of rounding off this talk really is, what are we building the models for? Are we building them to please other people? Are we building them because we enjoy the experience of building? Do we build them because we just want a model of that subject? It's probably a variety of these sort of reasonings for a lot of us. I want the subject in my cabinet, but I want to enjoy the journey. I really do want to enjoy the journey. I don't expect it to be easy. I don't expect the Andy's Hobby Headquarters, put it in the box with the glue and the paint and shake it and it'll be done. I don't want somebody to do it for me, you know, otherwise I could go and buy ones like Phil Flory used to sell. He used to do professional model building, you could buy them off him. People like that do it all the time. I don't want that, that wouldn't appeal to me. I want to do it, and then when people look at it and say to me, I mean, even just in the last few days I've had some very nice comments from many of you. Thank you very much about the Tacom Sea Wolf and Sea Dart that I recently finished. I've got some much more positive feedback than I was expecting actually, so I'm really grateful for that. But I did that, and that was a little bit tricky at times. There was parts of it that was a bit frustrating, but it looks great. The finished thing looks great. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't like the Sea Harrier. It wasn't absolutely painful. But with these, I am going to be doing a couple of these now. So I've said I'm going to be probably working on the Tomcat. I'm going to do the Mosquito, the big Mosquito, because that's going to be a joy, I think, really. And it's going to be, I don't know how to explain it. I think that some of you will understand that you've been through some really horror builds, and then you open the box and that, and it feels like Tamiya is on my side. And it feels like it's almost like I'm working in a team, really. I've had to split this video into two parts, and here's the second part. A bit ironic, because I wasn't far from the end, to be honest, so this will be a bit shorter, that's for sure. Anyway, we were talking about Tamiya, and I was just getting to the point, if you look very carefully, you'll notice that in the interim gap between shooting these two, I've had a chance to change a few things around. We've got the Lancasters and the Mosquitoes here. Sheridan's moved up. We've got the Lockheed P38 Lightning, the white box version here. And the Lightning, the other Lightning is Lightning 2 has moved back a bit. Anyway, I was in the just really summing up, to be honest, and I was saying about the beauty of Tamiya really is that, frankly, they feel like they're on your side when you're doing the build, and it makes me almost feel like I'm part of a team instead of feeling I've got people working against me. Sounds like paranoia, this doesn't it really? But you know what I mean, you know, I'm just going to have a little play with some of mine, show you some of those of you that may not have seen these. I'll show these as I'm talking away here. Zoom in on my Mosquito. This is the 48 scale one, which is a lovely kit. I mean, they do various versions of it, don't they? But it's an absolutely super kit, this one. Really like it, actually. And this is before I actually used to mask canopies. I think it's got a hand painted canopy, would you believe, framing. So if you take your time, you can do it reasonably well. You know, it's got the door open though, so it doesn't want to be flying right at the moment. Yeah, so another of their classics, and again you can pick this up for about £20 or thereabouts, £21, something like that. It's a lovely kit, really nice one from their back catalogue from the late 80s, early 90s, that one. And then we've got a couple of Formula 1 cars. We've got Nigel Mansell's mighty 1990 Ferrari, and then we've got Mario Andretti's John Player Special Lotus there just in the foreground, so I thought I'd bring that in. Just have a bit of variety rather than just do part 2 being the same as part 1. So yeah, I think that the beauty of these kits really is that they are so meticulously engineered, not only in terms of the plastic and the tooling, but the instructions are very, very good. They can look a bit busy, the instructions, but I think that's because Tamiya are often in their quest for perfection, if you will. They have a habit of telling you how to get the exact colour shade that you require by mixing several colours, and that can make the instructions look very busy because it'll list 2, 3 or even 4 colours that need to be mixed in what ratios, and that can make it look a bit heavy on the eye, shall we say, rather than just recommending an already available paint. But that costs money, you know. So what they're really saying to you is if you've got their range, you can get an ideal match by doing a mix according to the recommended ratios that they're going to specify for you, which is to be admired, you know, rather than having to say, well, you need this, and you've got to go and spend another £50–60 on paint. So I think that, as I was saying, there's a beauty in things that work properly and are done properly. Something else that I really admire in some of these kits, obviously it doesn't actually count in the case of the Mosquito, but the Lightning 2, for example, it comes with a stand. They're bringing back stands, which I really admire. And of course they've got stands in all those 32nd scale kits like the Corsair, Spitfire, Mustang, etc. And they have a stand and they have a pilot, so you can pose it in flight. And we need more of that, and this is something that, you know, people say, oh, Tamiya are quite expensive. Well, actually, when you've got to then go, you know, if you buy, I'm just picking on Airfix because they're a well-known brand in the UK, but you buy an Airfix and you've got to go and buy a stand, and then you've got to get an aftermarket pilot, and you've got to add all these things. Suddenly they're not, you know, and I'm not just picking on Airfix, it's true with Revell, you know, Great Wall, Hobby, all these other guys that I've been talking about, Tacom, etc, etc. You've got to go and buy all these extras, resin pilots and this fancy ejector seats and all this. It soon starts to get proper expensive. So actually Tamiya are not that expensive, because it's all in the box. You know, everything you really need is basically in the box in most of their kits. And as I said with the Spitfire, if you want to sort of upgrade with a bit of extra plumbing and wiring, which isn't so prevalent, that's probably true here with the Mosquito. I might have to take a view on that and put a bit of extra plumbing and wiring into that as well, I think, just to, you know, to make it, if I have the cowlings open, just to give it that bit of extra realism, really. By the way, I've just realised I've left my watch over there, and it's very precariously perched on the back of my car, which we don't really want. I'll just put that back on if you don't mind. Yeah, so, you know, when we talk about value, don't confuse price with value, and a lot of people do that. They don't understand the difference between price, cost and value. Value is what you get for the money, yeah. And if you have to go out and buy umpteen, you know, you got to buy masks, you got to buy pilots, you got to buy stands, suddenly your Airfix or Tacom or, you know, Great Wall, Hobby or whatever the kit may be, can start to look, you know, really quite expensive and not the bargain that you thought it was, frankly. So bear those things in mind. Tamiya will give you everything, you know, not always 100% perfect in the package, perhaps thinking perhaps about the decals, but at least they are barely usable, unlike the Edouard ones, which I said earlier. And I think that's you know, to be something to be factored into your decision-making process when you're thinking about whether you want to spend the extra on Tamiya. You may end up spending that extra anyway, because frankly, you know, to get the package and the things you need to complete the model in the way you want to do it, especially if it's perhaps going to be part of a diorama or something like Actually, I've got this Mosquito in a bit of a diorama. It sits there. It's got the Tamiya officers, 2 pilots being briefed by a senior officer with the Austin 10 kilowatt truck, I think it is, 10 hundredweight truck, I should say. And that's quite a nice diorama. I've got it on one of those Coastal Kits display stands on an airfield, so it looks pretty good actually. It looks all right. And again, you know, Tamiya are very good with their vehicles. You can often get a vehicle, especially at 48 scale, to go with it, and that's why they recently did this. These bundles where they were giving the Kugelwagen or the Austin truck or the American Jeep, I think it was, with the Mustang. They did a lot of bundles and things like that, quite effective, you know. So think about it. Those of you that are not, you know, Tamiya fans or not Tamiya's biggest fans, try and bear in mind that you do get a heck of a lot in the box, and you get something that has been properly researched, properly engineered, with 1 or 2 notable exceptions, literally 1 or 2 I can think of only. And even these older kits that they produce are very, very credible. They're very, very affordable. Great for entrance into the hobby. You know, just go to Tamiya. Go to Tamiya, because even now at 72nd scale they've got some nice kits like that new BF109 G6. They scaled it down to 72nd. That was another nice kit. So there's some great stuff, you know, to suit every pocket really, and every customer, I think. Are they the best model kit company in the world? Probably. I think they probably are, and that's the best way to sum it up. I can't think of any company that are offering more pound for pound in total for what you pay and what you get in return. That doesn't mean that you want to just build their kits, because some of their subjects don't always chime with everybody's tastes. Things like their cars, for example, they used to do this wonderful range of Formula 1 cars, and sadly, and this is not the fault of Tamiya, but they've not got licensing, it seems, with anybody now that I can think of, current licensing. And this, I think, is a problem of Formula 1 really. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but great shame. And you can see how well they did these cars, you know, and how well they did them in comparison with other manufacturers. I mean, I did this one, which was a dream build really, almost a dream build. And then I built the Brabham fan car from Fujimi, which was not a bad build, but nothing like, you can tell it wasn't Tamiya. And I alluded to this earlier when I was talking about the Porsche versus the Mercedes, the Porsche Fujimi versus the Mercedes Sauber from Tamiya, and the fact that there's no comparison really, not in terms of the way they go together. The engineering is on a different level, and that's what you're getting for your money. So, you know, if you want to fight and struggle with something, but you haven't got the cash, then you just need to adapt your skills, obviously. But if, like me, you've fought and struggled with many kits over the years, and you've had enough of that and really sick of it, to be honest, then it's time for something like this. And I think that I'll be building that in 2024. That's going to be my big build, my biggest build, well, ever really, I suppose. Apart from 24 scale stuff from Airfix and days gone by, and also their 48 scale Concorde was quite big. But that's going to be something that I can use. I've got a process I developed in the way I go about my models. I've alluded to it before about being a bit OCD. Because of that, I kind of have a system which suits Tamiya, or maybe it's almost like Tamiya has programmed me and I don't even realise it, like I've been brainwashed, I don't know. But I have a system of a very modular construction where I try and bring everything together at the end in a final assembly sort of phase, and I pre-prepare lots of bits of engines, and I'll pre-prepare sub-assemblies basically, and then try and bring them together as late as possible, rather than build it up and spray as I go, which can be problematic, with a lot of masking needed and stuff like that. I like to minimise the masking and try and spray things. I've even been known to paint on the sprue, and then I sort of finesse them once they come off the sprue, and then bring it all together in a final assembly. I've certainly built a lot of things like that, like the race cars in particular, because it seems to suit them, because you can do that. You can have the engine gearbox as one project, and the monocoque as another project, and the wheels and tyres and bodywork as another project. So I am very. I actually find Tamiya, the way that their kits go together, does suit my style of building more so than perhaps others do. I did the ICM MiG-25 Foxbat, and that was a much more what you might call conventional. I sort of struggled with that a bit, but I didn't struggle with the kit. I just struggled adapting to the way I needed to do it. I had a great result in the end. Very happy with it. I thought it was a good kit as well. But the Tamiya sort of way that they do these sub-assemblies and everything is and then kind of slotted together. That's certainly true with the new F-35, by the way. And I'll just say as well at the end, the new latest version of the F-35, the B, which is used by Britain and others, and the States and many other countries, that has just come out, and that looks, if anything, even better than the 35 that's over my shoulder, 35A. The B has obviously got the short vertical takeoff and rotating nozzle, vectoring nozzle, and the lift fan at the front. And I've seen the kit; it's just incredible, and another beautiful thing, really. So whether that wins Kit of the Year this year, I don't know. I kind of hope it doesn't, because I don't want to feel it's the same kit almost as last year. But we shall see. Other kits are coming through very shortly, for just before Christmas. So we'll have to keep our fingers crossed and our minds open, and see what we get, you know. But there's been some good kits this year. I don't think there's been so many really knockout releases like we got back in 2016 when 2014 when this came out. Things like that we seem to have less and less of, unfortunately. And I think that the only thing I would say to Tamiya in terms of things they need to change, they need to work on those decals, obviously, but they also need to think about, I think they may have retracted a bit too much, because this company isn't just a model kit company. They're very much known for their radio control model cars is something that they're very big into, and other toys that they get involved in from time to time. But I think that you can feel that they've perhaps not had the investment on the kit side in the last year or two, which is why we've not had any of these new 32nd scale releases. It baffled me, if I'm honest, that they didn't do a 109 in 32nd scale or an FW 190, and of course Okimura have kind of beat them to it on both counts now. And I think that was, I don't blame Okimura at all. I think that it was an open goal, really. So I do question a little bit the strategy, not the way they go about what they do, but more their planning strategy of what they're selecting as subjects. And I think that they have created a market for Okimura to occupy, really. I mean, you know, good luck to them. No problem at all as far as I'm concerned. As I said earlier, the more the merrier. I said that when I was talking about the Chinese manufacturers. You know, I don't want to see less manufacturers. I want to see more. But by being perhaps a bit too conservative, I think that's Tamiya's one problem. I think engineering-wise they're brilliant. I think they need to be given a little bit more funding on the kit side of the business, and I think that if they got that, I think they're just going to be. They're probably the undisputed number one already, but the crown just feels like it's slipping ever so slightly because they're not innovating with anything new. They haven't brought any massive projects out, really, apart from the F-35, and it's the same again this year. And I would have expected them to do something in between those two variants of the F-35, and perhaps another 32nd scale Warbird, you know, a P-40. I think that would make perfect sense for them to do a P-40. Obviously they've got the Zero already, but what else? I don't know, maybe a Messerschmitt 262 in 32nd scale. That would be really cool. A few options there, things that they can actually produce. Another one that they might want to think about, I thought, was perhaps a Hawker Tempest, which I think that they could do and do well. So there's a few subjects there that I think would sell well, you know, around the world. Or of course, somebody said to me only a few months ago, why don't Tamiya do a P-47 Thunderbolt in 32nd? That would make a lot of sense because it would sell so well in the States. A lot of Europeans and Brits would buy it as well. You know, that would be a very sensible choice. So there's a few suggestions there for you. Mr. Tamiya, no charge to you, free advice. I mean, he probably doesn't need my advice, but I just feel that they're not growing at the rate they were, and they're not growing in terms of their groundbreaking, game-changing astonishing new ideas. They seem to have deliberately pulled back on that, like they don't want to spend the money, perhaps because of uncertain times, not sure, but really would love to see them expand again and do more of the innovation like we saw, like in here with that the wheel set, the undercarriage. So let's keep fingers crossed that they're going to do that in the not too distant future. Anyway, I've probably said enough. I think it was going to be fair at the end of the year to sort of round off and say that I don't love every subject Tamiya come out with, but I think they probably are my favourite model producer. Just because you know that it's just got that, when you take the lid off the box and you know everything's going to be right, you know, they're going to have perfect artwork, they're going to have proper history, they're going to give you performance data about the subject of the aircraft or the vehicle or whatever it is, and they're going to have done lots and lots of meticulous research, and it's going to be a true scale model that represents, if you put the effort in, you can make it represent the true subject matter at the end. And that's not true of a lot of these other kits. You know, some of them are just become an uphill battle because they haven't engineered them properly, they haven't bothered to give you proper instructions, they haven't bothered to give you any data, and you're left in the dark about what you're supposed to be doing and what the purpose of it is. Tamiya cover everything. Yeah, it's a building experience, and it's often a historic journey really. Building one of their kits is absolutely fantastic, very involving, very enjoyable, on many different levels. You know, you gain knowledge. You can improve your skills. You can use, as I say, treat it as a blank canvas, and try and personalise, make your own take on a given subject. And because you've got such great basic material to work with, you have got, the world is your oyster. You know, it's limitless. You can take it as far in terms of weathering and dioramas. You can go as far as you want to with the Tamiya kit, because they just give you such a fundamentally sound, perfectly engineered, not over-engineered, just perfectly engineered product. And yeah, they're also very good at finding solutions. You know, things like jigs, they help you along, and this is what I was saying at the beginning of this part 2. I was actually saying, as I got cut off, that it makes you feel like you're almost in a team, and you are now the builder, you are the member of the team that's doing the building, and you're going to do the weathering and finishing. So you're almost like the final half of a process. And with a lot of kits that you spend quite a lot of money on, you can flash out, you know, £200-300 on some kits and think, wow, why is it that price? Because it doesn't command that price, you know. I mean, this one here is the most expensive kit I've currently got. They're worth in the shops, so £180 retail, I think it is. But that's got lots of extras in that box right in front of me. It's got all sorts of stuff. There's ammo feed chutes and guns and you name it, all sorts of things. There's some decals, interior seat belts, instrumentation for the cockpit. That's worth about £250, that box. But it's going to be something that's going to be an experience where I'll come in here, I'll take the lid off the box every time I want to come and have a go at it, and I'm going to be like, and try and relax and do exactly what the hobby's supposed to be for. Takes you out of yourself, takes you away from the troubles and difficulties and the bad weather and the bad politics and worries about the world. Takes you away from all that, puts you in your own little zone where you can create something and you can build on the basics that's in front of you, and you're not battling, you're not fighting, you're not getting frustrated. You're going to be in an assembly process where you're learning about the product and you're gaining knowledge, you're gaining skill, you're using your own skills to enhance it and make it even better. That's what it's all about. And above all, have an enjoyable hobby. And that's what I have found not to be the case with a lot of others. You know, I can make an Airfix kit and I can enjoy it, and I can make one or two others, you know, enjoy them. But none of them quite give me the satisfaction that the Tamiya does, because there is less time battling and more time adding things, adding detail, adding weathering, adding realism, because I have got the fundamental thing. You know, they've got my back, and that's the way I feel about them. I think that it's almost like, you know, relax, we've got this. We've got this one. You just focus on building it and making it unique, and giving a completely different take on it in your own personalised way. And that is the value of Tamiya. It's fun, it's fantastically good, you know, and it's like I said about a Swiss watch. It's like a Swiss watch in model making. It just does what it says on the tin, and very, very well. And it gives you the ultimate ability to make it your own, piece of art. So that's my take on Tamiya. I know that I had to split this into two for reasons not entirely clear. So I think we had a bit of a pulse with the slight flashing of lights. So whether we've got a bit of a lightning or something, I'm not sure. But there was nothing on my side. I couldn't find any fault with the camera, and there's plenty of room on the memory card. So it wasn't at my end, not me, Gov. I didn't touch anything either, because I was even checking to say, did I press a button or something? No, I checked. Didn't press anything. So very strange. Anyway, there we go. So I'm rounding off this series of looking at these current manufacturers. That's it for now. I wanted to kind of round it off with Tamiya because I felt that they were to me the best. Not perfect as I've explained, but yeah, I think that if they can iron out one or two of those minor issues, very minor issues, and just work on those, then they would be perfect. They're not that far away. You know, if they could just, it would be a miracle to me if they could get rid of all those minor problems, then that would be quite something, I think. And then people would just have no sort of argument against them. It'd be fantastic. But this isn't just about being a fanboy, it's not a love-in. I'd like to see other manufacturers, you know, look at Tamiya and appreciate what they've achieved, what their strengths are, and why people love them so much, why they are such a popular company worldwide. Because I think that others just completely miss the point, really. That they, you know, to some companies it's all about scanning, and that's the whole job. They just scan using technology really as a shortcut, and they're not putting in that same level of detail and quality in the rest of the process or the rest of the product that you actually buy. And a lot of us want to buy a product that's going to engross us, educate us, entertain us, and bring enjoyment. And I think that Tamiya does that. So there you go. They're probably my favourite model company. But others are coming. We saw Meng improving radically, and we've got Zokimura hot on the heels. So they can't afford to sit on their laurels. So I say to Tamiya, congratulations. I think you're doing a fine job, but don't rest on your laurels. You can't afford to do that. And I think that they need to have a new impetus and a new momentum and push forward again and show us what they can do, which they've done so impressively in the recent past. And I just congratulate them, but I also say, fingers crossed, please take on board those observations, and I hope that you will come back with more energy in the next year or two and do new things and push forward a bit more to keep your market lead, because I would hate to see that market lead slip. And they've raised the bar so high, you know, and some companies have indeed not copied them, but they've emulated and understood their success. And you can see how Tamiya has raised the standard, and even some of these kits I complain about, they're better than a lot of manufacturers were 30 or 40 years ago, to be fair. The standards have improved, and there's never been a better time to be in scale modelling than there is today. So that's where we're at. So I just hope, I'd say to Tamiya, you have a small lead in the market in terms of perception and quality and your image, and I think you should aim to maintain it and preferably increase it. And if you work at that, I think you're going to remain probably the market leader, to be honest. Anyway, thank you to Tamiya. I didn't get any phone calls interrupting me today. Thank you to all of you for watching. I hope you agree with me. Obviously not everybody will, but I think that I've highlighted the areas where they have got some issues, and I've highlighted the super strengths they've got as well. And it's like anything, you know, you work on your strengths and you try and delete the weaknesses as best you can, and you try and improve your strengths. Let's hope that they can do that. Hope to see you all over the Christmas New Year period. I think that probably my final video of the year is going to be a bit of a party. We're probably going to have a bit of a review of the year, talking about models, of course, a bit of champagne maybe, and perhaps I'll do a top 10 of my favourite kits of the year. It hasn't been an absolutely stellar year this year, I don't think, but there has been some good ones. Some have been a surprise. Some surprisingly good, some surprisingly bad. But we shall see. I don't in my mind still have that list formulated. I honestly can say that as I'm recording this, because there's still 3 to come that I'm expecting, waiting for, and I'm not sure which is going to be the best one. So we shall see. We shall see. But anyway, we can all have a drink together and share a bit of time and have a chat and continue to use the Christmas and New Year holidays to do some modelling and enjoy our hobby. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it, thought it was interesting and certainly thought-provoking, and thank you for all your time. And until I see you at the New Year party, thanks very much for joining me. Take care of yourselves, stay warm and stay safe. Thanks a lot, and bye for now.